Hello everybody, welcome back to another garden farm tour. For those of you that are new, my name is Ricky and I'm just going to take you through the gardens and our small little farm homestead here at Connerty Meadows farm. I love to start with my beautiful rose bush. She is unbelievably happy, sending up new shoots, putting off tons and tons of flowers. Isn't she beautiful? I love her. All right, let's move on. Over here we have some blueberry bushes and our new apple tree and some plum trees. The blueberry bushes, for those of you that don't know, came with us from our old farm. And look at this. They are looking really good. Lots of blueberries on there. This one's a replacement one for one that didn't do very well. Two more there as well that have blueberries. And here is our asparagus and some strawberry patch. And I call these strawberries my sacrificial strawberries. Oh, look. We let the chipmunks and the squirrels have these ones. And then they leave our main garden alone. I'm gonna eat that. Oh, everything looks like it's doing really good over here. And oh, I see a few more there. How can one walk past beautiful red strawberries without eating them? I don't think you can. Oh, see. That's why we call this sacrificial. You see the bite marks? That's from a bird. So we'll just leave that one there. Usually if I give them an offering, they leave the rest of my stuff alone. All right, let's pop over here. This is an herb spiral garden. If you're interested in seeing how we made that, we do have a YouTube video on it, and I can put it in the links in the description box below. I've added a few more things since we originally made it. So we have stevia, lemongrass, summer savory, cilantro that's already bolted on me. That's okay. And then we have lots of sage here. And we have two different types of basil in here. And then we have some chives and some parsley. And we have 3 different kinds of oregano in here. And then we have some thyme and some rosemary. And a nice little pretty on the top. We think she looks pretty good. And then our roses here are all coming along down this row, which looks really nice as they put out their beautiful blooms. So one of the reasons why we picked these particular roses is because they actually put off a decent size hip, and then I can use these to make rose hip jam or jelly or dry them for teas. Some of you may have heard the story of my beautiful rose bush. So it doesn't have any roses on it right now. It's a beautiful, I don't know if you can see that, orangey yellow flowers, and she's putting off some new shoots, so she's quite happy here. This bed here is mint, lemon balm, and catnip. I actually just cut back the catnip the other day, and I have put it in the dehydrator to dry. And over the next couple days, I'm gonna come in here and do some of the lemon balm and the mint. We use it in teas. The catnip we dry for the cats. I like to infuse it in oils for my soaps as well. So there's lots of different uses that we have those for. We have it in a bed here. Catnip, any of that family, catnip, mint, and lemon balm, they spread like crazy. A lot of people like to put them in containers so they don't spread. Personally, I don't care if they spread here on this front lawn, but it is kind of nice to say, okay, this is a separate piece from the lawn. Now this I'm just going to swing you around. Here is our newest bed. So if you had watched some of our videos in the past, you may have seen we had found this cement mixer back in the bush, and we pulled it all apart and we brought it up here, and we've made this new flower bed. One of my neighbors gifted me some flowers, plus I had purchased some flowers, and my mother-in-law had gifted me some flowers to put in here as well. And then our neighbor thought that this little butterfly solar light would look really good up here. So this is the newest flower bed. So now I don't think that there's any other things that I plan on doing with our front here. We have lilacs and roses down the front, plus lavender on each end, tulips that come up as well. Then we have 2 snowball bushes, we have the pear trees, we have my rose bush, and then we have these 3 flower beds up here. So I think we've definitely added a lot of curb appeal that was not here previously. All right, let's take a walk back up over there. So up here beside my beautiful pink rose bush, these are tulips that are now spent, and then behind them we have some peonies that we brought with us from our old farm, and I've now added some lavender in the front here between all of the tulips as well. This is a borage that I planted, and then there is some zinnias as well that I planted that are coming up. Now we actually ended up having 2 peonies give off some buds, which was totally unexpected. I was told after moving the tubers that you wouldn't expect to see flowers for at least 3 years, and this is only the 2nd summer they've been here, and we had 2 beautiful blooms, so that was a really nice surprise. They were, as you can see, they were the pink ones. I had dug up the pink, darker purple, and white from our old place. I do know that we lost a few, so I don't know what colors the other ones are. It'll be interesting to see when they all come up as to what colors are which and how it all comes up in arrangement. And this is a Sir Thomas Lipton rose bush. Beautiful white rose petals. This one used to be down in the raspberry bed area, but because we were planning on moving some things and putting a pergola in there, I moved it to over here. Because the other rose bush did so well here, I figured this one would be happy here too, and it definitely is. It's putting off a lot of new shoots and beautiful, beautiful white flowers. We've definitely added a lot of curb appeal in the front of the house here. Up until last night, we actually had baby birds in that nest, but as of early this morning, they have all left. So Mama Bird did a good job. Now these trugs, we actually had 3 of them with us at our old place. Of course, when we came here, it looked funny with 3, so we got a 4th, and these ones are filled with different things. So this one actually has fennel in it, it has marjoram in it. This one actually had a bunch of herbs in it last year, and some cilantro reseeded itself in here, which was fine. And then the rest of this is all zinnias. I wanted some pretty pops of flowers in there in the front of our house here. This is thyme I brought with us from our old house, and I can't remember the variety of it. So at the moment, I've just kind of got it sitting in a pot. It's been in a pot for, I don't know, since 2019, but it's doing all right. This is a bed of thyme. It's all different kinds of thyme. This one's a little bit of a variegated thyme, and then this is a thyme that I started from seed. This is the same one that is over in the spiral garden, but it's still all thyme. So that whole thing is just a nice big bed of thyme, which is great. We use it in cooking and all sorts of different things. So, and then of course we have chamomile. This whole bed here is chamomile with a few weeds thrown in, because you know, what's a garden bed without some weeds? And then the front of our house, we redid this garden bed with the help of our neighbor, and the flowers are all looking really nice and everything's coming up really well. To hear the peeping. So our meat kings are outside. These are our meat chickens, and we keep them in this movable coop. It's called a cackalack. Right now they're still young enough that we bring them in at night for predator protection. But once they're big enough to be outside full time, this will actually be enclosed in electric netting, the same kind of netting that we use for our goats. And just show you some more back over here. I still have some things in pots. So I actually went to Canadian Tire yesterday, and they had a whole bunch of plants on for $1. These there were some blueberries, and there were some blackberries, and there were some raspberries, and they said that they didn't think that they could save them. And I looked at them and I said, oh, look at all that nice green stuff. So these ones are actually going to be planted in amongst the ones that we brought with us down over there. I just haven't got to it. I gave them some water and I gave them some fish emulsion, and I'll probably end up either today or tomorrow putting those ones in the ground and making them happy little blueberry plants. Our neighbor gifted us some chives, and these we're going to put down on the path on the way to the creek, as well as the catnip there and the bee balm over there. So yeah, this is like, I swear every video I do, there's pots here, but they keep changing. So, you know, it's one of those things. Hello. Well, hello, girls. Have fun. Casey's on Red and AC's on Sully, and they're off for a ride. I told them they needed to go for a ride today. And here's some goatees. Oh, someone over there is having a wee snack. Oh, hello, Miriam. So Shake here is due to have a baby any day. This area is always nice and shady. Oh, that is little Lil. For those of you that were following along Lil's journey, that's Lil. And Casey has added a collar to her so that she can walk her a little more safely in a collar. So we just have them down in the first strip of the apple orchard, and then we just move them down through the strips here. And yes, they are next to the garden, but this is electric netting. So they have been trained from it from the time they were babies. So none of them mess around with trying to push through it at all, except what we call around bewitching hour, when the mosquitoes start to come out and they're desperate to go and get into the barn away from the mosquitoes. But other than that, they don't touch the fence. This here is what the cement mixer was originally sitting on. So we tore it all apart, and that's what's left. I just kept the pretty parts of it. All right, let's take you through the garden here. So the netting is around the garden because we call the goats in from the barn, and they will head straight for my garden when they're heading down into the chute here if I don't have this netting. So everything is netted up at the moment. So here's our strawberries. These two rows here are June-bearing strawberries, which means the strawberries are generally a little bit bigger, and they're just starting to come on ripe now. And these two rows that are not quite as thick are the ever-bearing strawberries, and we've been eating them for a number of weeks already, and they're actually finishing up, but they will have a whole nother round of strawberries to give later on in the summer. Usually, I want to say August, September, they'll usually put another bit of a showing on. So, let's see here. You can just see we've got some delicious treats in there to eat. We already had strawberries and cream for breakfast this morning, but it seems that I missed some along the way. All right, and so here on these trellising are tomatoes. We trellis our tomatoes and then we prune them down to a single stem. This makes it easier for me to manage, and all of my tomatoes are indeterminate, which means that they will just keep growing 7 to 10 feet tall. So they need a proper support system. Tomato cages don't work for us. Now here's an interesting thing. I'm just going to show you guys this. So we have 2 tomatoes here side by side. You can see this one is not near as healthy as this one. And the reason is this one was actually out when we got below freezing temperatures just after, I think it was May 25th, 26th, somewhere around there. Even though I covered everything and I tarped everything and I put pails on everything, we actually got below 0. So these guys got frostbitten. I had backups in the garage. This is a backup. And you can see, even though this one's still alive and doing okay, it was stunted by the cold. It's still going to be fine. It is just going to be a little bit further behind the rest of them. And you'll see all the way through the ones that I had in the garage versus the ones that were outside and got a little bit stunted. Like this guy was in the garage. This guy was outside. So yeah, you can definitely see, even in that row over there, there's a definite difference. Like here, huge difference between these 2 tomatoes. This one was in outside. This one was in the garage. Whoa! Look it! It's the first one of the season. Oh, that's very exciting. I am very happy. So we also have our tomatoes in hills, and the reason for that is tomatoes, I like to bury them as deep as possible. So I've actually trenched the roots to plant them and put them in, and I do have a video on how we plant our tomatoes. I can also put that in the description box below for you, just to show you. We do it a little different than you'll traditionally see it. Oh, there's another one. This is exciting. No more store-bought tomatoes. So this little guy here was one of those rescued plants at the end of the season that I purchased. This is apple mint. Now, I've never had apple mint before, so I'm curious to see how this one plays out. We did a planting the garden video, and I planted this lettuce in that video, and there it is. And I'll just do a quick rundown to show you what's going on in the garden here. Corn's coming up. So anything that you're seeing in pots along the beds here is peppers. I had found in previous years, putting the peppers in the ground, they just didn't do as well. In fact, what would happen is right around just before the frost would come, I would be getting flowers, and then the frost would come and I'd lose them all. So I would literally spend the whole season, starting from seed, peppers, and I would get nothing. I think I got like 4 peppers last year, maybe 5. Either way, it was an insignificant amount. Now, on the flip side, I always put Thomas's hot peppers in pots. And we had a substantial amount of hot peppers. Now, none of us eat hot peppers, but Thomas. And I was able to pickle his peppers. I was able to dry them. I was able to do so many things with them. So I said, this year we're going to try something different. This year we're putting all the peppers in pots, and let's see what happens. So this is our trial. And I already have more peppers on my plants now than I've gotten in previous years. So, win for me. I guess we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of curious to see if after this picking of peppers, if they'll actually try to put off another round of peppers. And the other thing that I'm really excited about, the fact is that they're all in pots, which means when the weather dips down, when it gets cooler, instead of putting the effort into covering these peppers, I can just put them all in the garage where it's warm and keep them alive longer, which means I could put them in at night and then put them back out during the day, which will extend my pepper harvest season, which means I'm hoping I will get 2 rounds of peppers. So hopefully you'll follow along and let's see how it works. I really don't know. This is my theory, and we're gonna try it out. I got nothing to lose, right? I've got all these pots and I've spent all the time putting the peppers in. Now, I do have some peppers in the ground. I didn't sell as many as I thought I would this year. So I actually made up another bed, which I'll show you in a bit here. And I did put some peppers in the ground there. So I will have to make an effort to cover those ones. But it'll be interesting to compare the two, I guess, and see which ones I get the better pepper production out of. Yeah, all right, let's continue. Over here in this strip, we have some patty pan squash, and this one here is Acorn Squash. And what I have here is a trellising system. It's actually the same ones that I'm using for the tomatoes here. I buy them at Home Depot, and they're to go in concrete, like with rebar, and they're about 15 or 16 bucks, and they work perfect. They're a lot less expensive than a cattle panel, but the same idea, and I don't have to cut them for smaller things. So this guy will actually be trained and tied to go up this trellis, which will give me more room on the ground, because here I have planted pumpkin and I have planted pumpkin here. So the pumpkins will have room to sprawl through the whole thing, and the acorn will go up, and the patty pan just becomes like a big bush. And I have another patty pan down here, and it'll do the same thing. So the patty pans will be a bush, and then the pumpkins will have like all of this area to climb over. If you're wanting to know what this black stuff is, this is a permeable for water weed barrier. And the great thing is it requires me to water the garden less, because not so much evaporation happens. And then it also prevents the weeds. So instead of me spending every waking minute weeding my garden, I only have to weed within the rows. And as you can see, not even within all the rows. I have a little bit of weeding usually where the straw is, but for the most part, the corn's going to grow so quickly that the weeds will not make it. And down here where I have bush beans, it's all been strawed down, so no weeds will come up through there, or very little. Most of what you see coming up in those is the actual straw itself that is sprouting, and that's easy to just rip out. And you can see here between the two where there would have been an empty space, I put straw down. All right, moving on. This is potatoes. And if you watched our planting the garden video, I talk about the difference in curing your potatoes versus uncuring your potatoes. I learned my lesson, don't cure them, I just cut and drop. And last year I cured my potatoes and I had 6 potatoes. This year I did not, and look at, it's awesome. This is our bean trellis. Most of this is made out of cedar. There are some bamboo sticks in here that I had purchased many years ago, and we just reuse them every year. If you're interested in learning how we make this, I do have a bean trellis video. I can link it in the description box below for you. I show you how we make this from start to finish. A lot of the bean poles in this just came from the bush. So really it wasn't a lot of effort for us to, or cost, and it all is tied together, just binder twine, so very cost minimal. So this is our raspberry beds in here. They now have a double layer of logs. Originally we only had one layer, but once we put the chips down in the middle, it raised it up so much that we actually needed to put a second layer in. And these lovely, big, tall things are going to be my pergola. So let me just move around here so that you can see. So this is going to be a pergola, and up each of the posts and pots over here, we have some Concord grapes. We have another kind of grapes, and we have kiwi. This is Isaiah kiwi. It's hardy in our zone. The kiwis are only about this size, like about the size of what a green grape you'd see in the grocery store. The kiwi tastes like kiwi, but it's not fuzzy, and you can just pop it in your mouth and eat it straight off the vine. I thought it was a really cool thing to try to do on the pergola. I've never grown it here before. I've actually never grown it before, but I was really curious to see how it would do. I've read a lot of really great things about it, so I'm looking forward to trying that out, and we'll keep you guys posted on how they do. Obviously, we'll show you in the garden tours and stuff like that, but apparently they fruit out in September-ish. So we'll see. I don't expect fruit this year. Usually I don't expect fruit for the first year or two, so they have time to establish. But it's still a really neat kind of idea. Same with the grapes. Like, we ordered the bare root grapes this season, knowing that I was putting the pergola up and that they were going to go on the pergola. So I don't expect to see grapes from them for a while yet either. The one kind of grape that's a different variety, I actually won in a contest from Hardy Fruit Trees Nursery. They had a photo contest about promoting growing your own food and whatnot, and I entered some pictures and I won. And I got to pick, there was a number of different things that I could pick, different kind of trees and stuff. No apple trees or anything, but I wanted something edible, so I went for the grape, and they call it a surprise variety. So I'm not really sure. They said it was probably like a green or a pink sweet grape. So it'll be cool to see what we got. As you can see, the raspberries are doing fantastic. So the way we trim our raspberries up in the fall is we trim them to about a foot and a half off the ground. And what that does is that means in the spring, off of the shoots that I have trimmed, we actually get one feeding of raspberries. These guys were planted last year, they were trimmed back, and this spring they're going to give us fruit. These guys here all grew this spring, and all of these new ones will give me fruit this fall. These guys will die off after the fruit is done, and I'll be able to trim them down to nothing. These guys, in the fall, I will trim them down to about a foot to 18 inches off the ground, and next spring they will give me raspberries, just like these ones did. So in doing that, I actually get 2 rounds of raspberries instead of just one big one. I do plan on putting the black fabric here between these raspberries, here between these ones, and here between these ones. Now currently here we have all of our peppers, and remember I was saying we're further ahead this year than we were last year. Like, look at this. This is beautiful. So these are cherry bombs. These are hot peppers, but I am getting peppers on everything that I never got before. Like, look at them all. I have peppers everywhere. So these ones are sweet ones. And look, so these guys, I know they look like hot peppers. They're just a small sweet variety. This one here though is a regular pepper variety, and it's getting really big. So it's very exciting when I come down here and I see already we have more peppers than we ever have. So we're hoping that with me putting the black fabric down, it'll actually keep these guys quite a bit warmer as well, but then I don't have to fight with this weeds all the time. All right, we got some peas coming in. Look at this. I had a few yesterday. They were really tasty. Let's talk about a little more of the frost damage. This guy, and you can see he got crispy. But look at this. Can you see all that new growth? I didn't give up on them. I heavily watered after we got that freeze, and I was able to save pretty much all the plants. I think I only cut out 2, maybe 3 of them. Same with this. This one got hit, but look at this new beautiful growth. So don't give up if you get frozen. Just water. Some lavender coming in here. We got some cucamelons coming in here. Now my cucamelons we put on the arch trellis. Actually, let me switch sides since the sun's on that side for you. So we put them up on the arch trellis. On this side, I have Kajari melons and honeydew melons. We got carrots in the front here, and more carrots and tomatoes. And then in the front of each of my garden beds, we have rhubarb. And here are some radish that bolted. So when radish bolts, they're beautiful flowers, but don't pull them out when they bolt. These flowers will turn into seed pods, and the seed pods are delicious and they taste like radish. So it's a win-win. You actually get like a double whammy of radish tasting things, and they'll put out more pods than just a single thing. So we harvested a bunch. We had roasted radish dinner many times, and now I'm letting these go to seed so we can eat the seed pods. And behind them, I have a whole bunch of pickling cucumbers. So the thing with planting the radish in front of the cucumbers is the cucumber beetles don't really like the smell of the radish, so it kind of messes them up a little bit. And so you're less likely to have as much damage to your plants. These guys are way healthier than my cucamelons over there with no radish in front of them. So that bed I had planted some carrots and they didn't come up as well. So I'm actually going to put in another thing of radish. Even if they bolt, the smell of the radish repel the cucumber beetles from smelling the cucamelons until we are actually able to harvest some. And then within my tomatoes, I also plant in some lovely marigolds, and the marigolds are the same. The smell of them messes up certain pests for the tomatoes. This little guy here, I only had 3 of this particular tomato variety, this great white, and this one got really badly frozen, and I left it and I said, well, we'll see what happens. And look at this. It's beautiful. Tomatoes want to live. They can take a pretty good beating. They want to live. These guys here are volunteer ground cherries from last year, so I'm going to leave a few. I'm going to have to thin them, but I'm definitely going to leave a few because we absolutely love ground cherries. This here is a water trough that after 13 years finally sprung a leak. So we planted dill in it last year, and then we have a few flowers in it, so it's got dill in again in this year because dill likes to reseed itself. So each of these beds is kind of a repeat of the last. There are different things planted in amongst, like this one has strawberries back here, which this fall I will be taking out and moving them over to the asparagus patch to become sacrificial strawberries. Oh, look at this. Last year I had sunflowers in here, and it's but these guys are sending off like runners like crazy. So I will be rooting these runners and gifting them or selling them. The last bed here, it looks like a jungle. This is Comfrey. The bees absolutely love it. We do have some pepper plants in here at the end, and this is where I've been actually snacking most of my peas from. There's quite a few in there. And then we planted some onions along here. I have some radish again that I've let gone to seed. And it was really funny. I have a volunteer tomato from last year, so I'm curious to see what kind it is. And then we have some romaine here and more cucumbers on the end here. And then a pop over here. So I have to be careful, this fence is hot. So chicken coop, rooster's letting you know. So this is our garlic patch. I have been picking scapes on and off the last number of days now. We've had lots of delicious food with scapes in it. And then we've got some kale, some sunflowers, some volunteer jewelweed growing in here. This hop plant I brought with us from our old place, and it is so happy here. I used to actually have it over by the plum trees, And it literally only grew like this much last year, enough to stay alive, and then that was that. This year we put it in and it has just exploded. So eventually it'll go all across there. And anyway, we're not gonna make beer with it. I just have it because I use it when I make beer soap. I use the tops of it as like decoration on the tops of the soap. And we have some borage here in the corner, chamomile, sunflowers, comfrey. This is more like this bed is more of a flower bed. I pick the chamomile usually every 2 to 3 days, and then it looks like this again. So much chamomile, it's wonderful. And then here we have our Blackberry Run, and we do have sunflowers in here as well. Again, when I was in Canadian Tire the other day, they had so much stuff on for like $1 and $2. So this sad little guy, and he doesn't look sad now. This sad little guy was like $1. And they're like, oh yeah, you know, he's sickly or whatever. I put him in the ground. I gave him a good drink, and look at, like, yeah, he's not dead. He just needed someplace to go. And since we have other blackberries that are thornless in here, we decided to add these guys in. Same thing with this one. Look at this. Those plants on that discount rack, don't give up on them. So these fluffy little ones here, these are cosmos. These are flowers as well. They're not chamomile. I know on the video they probably look like chamomile, but they're cosmos. All right, and then over here, so remember I talked about how we had some peppers that weren't in pots. I actually had a number of leftover tomatoes and pepper plants. And I did sell some, but I didn't sell them all. And I'm a sucker for not just composting them, because I'm like, I put all that time and effort into them. So this bed here was always supposed to be a flower bed in the spring, and then it would be a garlic bed in the fall. So we just finished this bed, let's say like 2-3 weeks ago. Anyway, it wasn't that long ago. We just finished up this bed, and I said, well, instead of putting flowers in, let's not waste the tomatoes and the peppers. Let's put them in here. So we did. We put the tomatoes and the peppers in here. I'm still able to trellis all the tomatoes here up on the fence. If I lose some tomatoes to the chickens, it's okay. I have lots. The plan for this garden and these tomatoes is any extra we are going to donate to the food bank. I have more than enough within my own garden. So even though these plants could have been composted, I figure donating to a worthy cause is probably the better end for these plants. And it really doesn't take me all that extra effort or work to look after them. You can see here these peppers are the ones that are not in pots. But it's really funny because we already have beautiful peppers on them all. Well, not all of them, but a good chunk of them. So yeah, it's really nice. And the tomatoes, so these guys were actually in smaller pots for much longer than I would like for them to be. But you can see the difference in the leaf structure from when they were in the pot. Sorry, my shadow's in the way. From when they were in the pot to when they got planted in the ground. There's just the color difference of the growth. They're much happier here. I have a few that kind of don't look the greatest here, but we'll keep an eye on them. If they don't do very well, it's okay. As you can see, we have piles. And then in between, I just planted this basil last night, so some of it's looking a little bit sad, the purple basil too. So we'll just keep these well watered and see how they do. They'll perk up, I'm sure, within a day or so. It's going to be a little more overcast tomorrow, so I'm pretty sure they'll be all right. Look at that view. Isn't that nice? See the goats on this side, and then flowers and food on this side. Chicken. So in the chicken coop, I actually have a number of mums with babies. And this is Turkey, who is the single turkey that we brought with us. I bred Bourbon Reds at our other farm, and I absolutely love the breed. I absolutely love the turkeys. I miss having them. We just didn't have the infrastructure here for them. When I sold all my breeding stock, I could not sell Mrs. Turkey. She has a bit of a bum leg, and she'd been a great mother. And originally when we moved here, I was like, oh, we'll probably just eat her or whatever. Well, I couldn't eat her because she was so friendly and she's such a nice turkey that we ended up just keeping her as a pet. And she's gone broody, so she wanted to raise some babies. I don't have any poults to give her, so I gave her some chicks, and she's in there now. And I'm not gonna bug her because I just gave them to her last night, but she's in there now, and she is like the happiest mom ever, which I'm so happy. Like, you got a animal that doesn't really seem to have a purpose, but just to love on, and she is raising a batch of chicks, which is a huge purpose for us, because then I don't have to put it in an incubator, I don't have to put it in a heat lamp, I don't have to put it in a brooder, and then I don't have to reintegrate them back into the flock when they're older. She'll do it all. I love it. All right, let's pop around and have a look at the trees and the haskaps. So this little tree is the tree that was drowning. I dug it up, I stuck it in a pot, and I waited. And I waited, and I waited, and then it broke its bud. And right away, I got it back out here. I built it a little raised bed, and it's within this pen because it's in the chicken coop, and I don't want the chickens disturbing it, and it is doing really, really well. So these were the haskaps that were also drowning, and I built them beds. And then again, I went to Canadian Tire, and they had plants on for $1 or $2, and there's a whole bunch of haskaps, and I couldn't leave them there. So I bought them. And again, like, people are like, oh, they're dead, they're dying. They're not, guys, they're not. You can save them. Look at this. There's lots of new green growth. They are fine. Yeah, there's a lot of dead growth down underneath. They just didn't have enough room in the little pots that they were in. And they're not meant to stay in those pots long term. So look at this. Like, look. Brand new, beautiful growth. So my plan now is I am actually going to put beds between the beds. So I will have haskaps the whole way along here. That seems the best option. We'll just have a row of haskaps here. And then on the other side of the rabbit hutch, we'll have some haskaps too. Oh, speaking of rabbits, guys, I don't know if you're part of my Facebook page. You will have seen when I discovered we had baby bunnies. Look at this. They're growing really well. Oh, their eyes are open. Some of them. Hi, little guys. So cute. Very cute. And here's the other two haskaps. So these guys were high enough off the ground that they didn't actually need to have little raised beds. But what I found the problem was when I went to cut the grass around them, I ran into the fact that I couldn't whip or snip without worrying about hitting the haskaps and so on and so forth. So I'm actually going to join the two beds together, and I'll plant a haskap there as well. They're in raised beds just more for their own protection, so I know where they are, and I can easily cut the grass around them. All right, so that is the garden / farm tour that I'm going to do today. I'm not going to pop over to the beehives. I think that they're due for an inspection next week. If you want to see the installation of when we put the nukes in and the prepping of the bee yard, that's all on our YouTube channel. I can pop the links down below for you. You can check it out. But for now, this was more of a garden tour for sure. And just showing you what's changed and what is left to do. The plan this afternoon is to work a little bit more on the pergola over there, and actually I'll pop you around and I'll show you a shot from further away. So you can see the pergola there behind me. The plan is that we're going to make the ends strong enough that we can actually put swings on it for the girls, or even their hammocks. They really miss their swing set from the old place. We did bring a couple swings with us that we'll be able to install on the two ends. So it's going to be like a multi-purpose pergola. It's going to have climbing things on it, and it'll have the kids' swings. And I think it's also going to add just a really pretty factor to the farm. You'll be able to see it from the road that we live on as people drive by, and it's just going to add a a little extra something, just to be different, just to have a focal point in the garden, I guess you could say. The one side of the garden, if you're extending down to the raised beds versus the in-ground garden, the in-ground garden has a slight bit more length than the raised bed side, but pretty close to being in the middle. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed this video or this tour, give us a like, subscribe. All of that actually helps us on the farm and helps our channel. We really appreciate all your support and your watch hours that you're putting in for us. On that note, I'm going to say thanks for joining us on our farm. We'll see you next time.